You suck with Nurgle. Admit it. Go on, admit it. Well, don't worry. Grandfather Blake is going to look after you, and today I guarantee you will at least understand why you're so terrible with Nurgle as a faction. Now this is a guide as to why you suck with Nurgle on campaign, specifically Immortal Empires, because I don't know who plays the other campaign. As another disclaimer, this is not for multiplayer, so if you're looking to understand the complex and rigorous dynamics of why you're terrible at that, then I suggest you look elsewhere. This video will help you get out of the hellish experience of Nurgle's early campaign to that sweet, sweet snowballing phase that you hear oh so much about. My name is Blake and I bid you my fondest welcome to Blake's Takes, where today I'll be giving you my take on why you're just awful with Nurgle. Is my take hot or not? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoy today's video, please like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out. Now, let's immerse ourselves in the bubbling cesspool of this Nurgle-tainted video. Reason you suck with Nurgle, number 1. You don't prioritise targets correctly. We've beaten our first battle, carried in no small part by Kugath's hefty presence. Now, you're given two realistic options with how to proceed. Do I go for the smaller settlement to the north, or the larger capital settlement to the west? If you said go for the larger settlement, you're wrong. You are Nurgling wrong, and you did not prioritise your targets correctly. Notice the small settlement has a lizard army in there, recruiting. By going for the capital first, you will allow them to recruit a full stack of skinks and saurus that will make mincemeat of your units. They will become very difficult to uproot. By taking this army out early, you'll save yourself a lot of trouble in the future. This is prioritising your targets. You are fragile. They are strong. You must strike while they are weak before they can hurt you. There is no honour in Kugath Plague Daddy. Do not let your first enemy recruit enough to cause you serious casualties in your subsequent turns. You have bigger, more undead fish to fry. Reason you suck with Nurgle, number 2. You level up Kugath wrong. Kugath is indeed a mage, but is he a very good mage? His terrible mobility really punishes his spellcasting ability. Handily, you start with a Plague-Ridden, who also has access to the lore of Nurgle. He will serve as your spellcaster. He will also gain access to a Rotfly, so he can more easily move around the battlefield, whilst poor Kugath will simply stay on his mobility scooter. Kugath should primarily be your damage-dealing Mortis Engine artillery tank. Focus on his yellow skills first, being sure to pick up extra ammunition for his ranged attack, which absolutely pounds early game units. Nice. This isn't to say you shouldn't pick up his spells later in the campaign, but in the early stages you want to rush to his Pestilent Decay ability. This ability is extremely useful in sieges and can be used to devastating effect as units blob around him. It effectively turns him into a Vampire Count's Mortis Engine and is not to be overlooked. Pestilent Decay should be prioritised, as well as his unique line skills that give an assortment of goodies. It's not to say that he's not a bad mage, but he doesn't provide anything unique in his spellcasting ability, which you couldn't just get access to with a Plague-Ridden. Reason you suck with Nurgle, number 3. You're not goading Ghorst. It is no small secret that Helman Ghorst is your arch nemesis in this campaign. By around turn 5 or 6, when you have consolidated your first province, he will attack you, and he will attack hard. He will have multiple full stacks of bony boys, whilst you can barely afford one full stack of units which are of similar quality. Well, this is where you need to be delightfully devilish in your machinations, and hire another small force to follow you around and beat stuff up with. On this campaign, I hired a buddy for Kugath on turn 1 to follow him around and lap up experience. This starting army I leave far smaller than Kugath's, and that's to goad Ghorst. To goad somebody is to provoke or annoy them so as to stimulate an action or reaction, and that is exactly what we'll be doing today. Ghorst will see this delightful small morsel of an army and think, oh, all I need is the one stack to go and clear them away, and then BAM! Your trap is sprung. Your cunning ruse of hiding a 3-story tall demon that smells of the most potent fecal matter was executed without a hitch, and we have dealt a crushing blow to the enemy. Now, after watching one of his armies shrivel to nothing in front of him, so will Ghorst's testicles, and he or one of his armies will often flee to scrap towers. This is where our goading army plays a dual purpose. It will besiege the settlement, preventing old Ghorsty boy from coming out to play, while your main army can clean up his reinforcements. Once this initial barrage of enemies is dealt with, your Ghorst issues will fade into obscurity. Remember to utilise the ambush stance liberally throughout your campaign, and to use supporting, besieging armies to prevent them from reinforcing each other. These two strategies will help you go far. Reason you suck with Nurgle, number 4. You don't set up your formations correctly. Blob together. This stops your units from dying. You want to minimise the surface area that each of your units take damage from. Your units are very slow and vulnerable to being flanked. How you address this is by not allowing there to be a flank in the first place. I find a nice Nurgly wall is the most effective way of dealing with this. Plague bearers up front, Nurglings peppered throughout the back. This is of course even better in a forested environment that will protect you from missiles and large creatures too. Watch out if there is a caster on the enemy team, as they may punish this blob with spells. Artillery is also something you should be concerned about. Unlike the vampires and order factions, your healing spells don't have the restriction on number of units affected, so having your units together really optimises the amount of healing done. In short, sticking together in a disgusting blob prevents morale shocks from flanking attacks and synergises nicely with Nurgle's healing. Furthermore, it also allows Kugath's pestilent decay ability to impact the largest number of enemy troops. Reason you suck with Nurgle, number 5. You don't play to Nurgle's strengths. Similarly to your hated nemesis, the vampires, Nurgle's units, especially in the early game, range from bad to downright unusable. They are a distraction wall, nothing more. Your lords and heroes will be doing almost all of the heavy lifting, which is why it is imperative to recruit many to each army. Your early game units are expendable, expensive trash. Your heroes are the backbone of a starting Nurgle army. Exalted champions, plague-ridden and cultists are all amazing heroes when they've had a few levels put into them, and you will rapidly see how effective they are. A top tip for hero recruitment is it's governed by your main settlement building. For capital cities of a province, a level 3 main settlement building will give access to a plague-ridden. Level 2 in the same will give access to exalted heroes. For minor settlements, you need to reach level 3 in the main settlement building to be able to attract cultists. Also, natural resources are extremely important for Nurgle, as they increase the number of heroes you can field by 1 for each type. This hero limit does not increase the higher you build up the resource building. All that increases is the percentage modifier for income. A resource building only costs 500 gold at level 1, so I highly advise you take that building whenever possible. As you can see here, I'm on turn 100. I have a healthy dose of heroes in every army. Even in the later game, when you have access to some very powerful units, I find the utility of heroes too much not to bring them. Reason you suck with Nurgle. Number 6. You don't know how Nurgle makes money. Nurgle, somewhat counterintuitively, is a sack faction. You need to be aggressive, attack multiple settlements, sack them for money and then occupy them. You'll never make much money from owning territories, but you will make absolute wedge from sacking other factions' property. Try not to get bogged down with the ogre settlements and make your way over to the wealthy Cathayans in the early game. This means you will often be running on negative favour, and sometimes substantially so. This means you need to keep finding new enemies to kill and infect to grow your economy. Your buildings are extremely expensive, so build them sparingly, and only in regions you're sure you can defend. Infections, your other currency, don't do anything unless converted into plagues. This means you should always be spending them. There is no reason to save them up, unless it's very early game and you need to save up for a tactical plague cultist. You want to rush towards Nurgle's Rot, which provides a 20% physical resistance buff to your units, whilst also allowing you to summon plague bearers to the battlefield to deal with pesky artillery pieces. This will make life much easier for you on the battlefield as you progress in the campaign. The Black Plague massively boosts your sacking income, so be sure to rush towards that as well. Every turn, you need to ensure that you're spending these infections. Passing units between armies will infect both, yielding yet more infections.
It's free real estate.
Reason you suck with Nurgle. Number 7. You don't own the Champions of Chaos DLC. Yes, I am sorry. It hurts, but it has to be said. By not owning this DLC, you are going to have an even rougher time with Nurgle. Firstly, the Exalted Champion is absurdly good. They can do a huge amount of damage and are your most effective counter to enemy lords, heroes and single entities in the early game. I recruit a couple as early as I can, and I try to ensure that I have at least one in every army. Their high armor piercing damage with their extreme tankiness and armor means you can often send them barreling at the enemy lord with little to no consequence. You also miss out on Chosen of Nurgle, arguably one of the most powerful infantry units in the game. But also you have less infantry to choose from throughout the early game, as you will have no marauders or chaos warriors. This leaves a desperate lack of shields and armor piercing infantry in your army. Also, you can't put your Nurgly cultists on their War Shrine mount. The War Shrine perfectly complements Nurgle's playstyle with mass area of effect healing for your filthy blobs. Finally, you're missing out on the Chaos Sorcerer of Nurgle, who can ascend to a Demon Prince as a flying caster lord with incredible tankiness and melee stats. This lord is, I find, sadly, a far better version of the Exalted Crate Unclean one, and it's easier to level them up, as they get access to mounts very early, at around level 4. Remember that mobility is king when it comes to spell casting. Look, I'm so sorry, Kugath. Long story short, the Champions of Chaos DLC is extremely useful for all the Chaos factions, but especially for Nurgle. Whether I agree that such bread and butter units should be locked behind paid DLC is subject for another video. And that's it. That's why you suck with Nurgle. Do you agree with my take on this? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed today's video, please like and subscribe for more content. If I get to 1,000 subscribers this month, I will videotape myself eating a whole watermelon. Thank you so much for watching.